come to save the day. This is Corey, and this is the Anthem podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Rob. Exciting day today.
Yeah.
I'm super stoked about it.
Talking about Tuesday, right?
Yes, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Tuesday.
If you're listening to it the day it drops, which you should, because...
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Or if you're sitting out by the pool later on this week, enjoying it. Hi, how are you? Oh, do you have a copy? Hey, look at that. The Movement Insurrection, available on Amazon. This is not a movement book. It's in
It's burning my hands.
Oh, it's so hot. I'm on fire.
I think it's actually made of acid.
I thought we recalled those. Anyway, so it's in the same universe, but it's not the same book. This book is called Faux, and it'll be available on Amazon today.
Spell that for me, please.
That's F-A-U-X.
And
Faux.
if you go to otheanthem.com, there will be a graphic there where you can click on it and go directly to Amazon and purchase it if you wish.
Well, there you go. So,
we're not forcing you to, but, you know,
so I thought we would
help a brother out.
And the Kindle book is actually very affordable. I mean, so is the paperback for that,
Yeah.
but the Kindle is definitely affordable. Go ahead, yeah.
Can I ask some?
Sure, hit me up. Let's do that.
First, what is this book about?
Okay, so the title is Faux, and it's a play on words in some ways. It's a pun in some ways because there are many different definitions of just the word foe and its homonyms. So there is a somebody who you're fighting against. That's a foe. A foe also has the meaning of being fake or a knockoff of reality. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's that plays in. But the book is about the main character's name is Christopher Bishop. He is an attorney, and the major crux of the story is that he has 3 lives, if you will. His first life is as an attorney, and he's mildly good at his job, and he's popular, and he's successful, and he meets a girl who fits in with that life. And then he has another part of his life that is more dingy. It's drugs and strip clubs and living on the other side of town, if you will.
Yeah.
And he meets a girl in that part of his life. And then so he has these two things warring about these two sides of his life and how they come together and how they drive him apart. And in the mix with all of this stuff is this huge secret that he's keeping from everybody, which is that he has a bloodthirst, if you will. He has an addiction to carnage and murder. That's really what it comes down to. So he's trying to balance this very straight and narrow woman in a straight and narrow life with a very not straight and narrow woman and the lifestyle that they have. And in between is this other factor of him just having this desire that he can't come to terms with, and trying to play each of those things off of the other. And obviously that there will be a crux at the end where it's a decision between these 3. No man, a house divided against itself cannot stand. So you can't have a guy who has 3 different...
Did you just write that?
I did. It's amazing, yeah. Trademark. So if he's been divided like this, only one thing can win out in the long run. So we find out how that plays out.
Follow-up question.
I thought you were about to Jiminy Glick me.
Do you find yourself...
Yeah.
Follow-up question.
Sure.
The movement was very political.
Yes.
And has many overtones to sort of like what's happening in real life now.
Right.
Is Faux as political?
Not as political. If I was to again, I'd like to create a universe, and all of my projects will exist in the same world. So the things that are talked about at the beginning of the movement are mentioned in the book, in Faux. Mm-hmm. But they're mentioned because all that does is create a timeline. I'm creating a timeline of events that's leading forward. So there is some mention of politics. It's not political at all. There is no government. There is no overthrow. There is no nothing. This is a story of 2 people living in the current to near future. So, and being a successful socialite, for lack of a better term, it is a little bit of a commentary about how above it they all are. Like, they hear these stories, these things are happening, but it doesn't really impact their life.
Right.
And just because, I mean, in a way, I can't keep the politics out. I love politics. It's part of my life. But I did want to have, it's a companion piece to the movement, because you can see that this is why the things in the movement may have happened, because there was this detachedness amongst the rich. But certainly not as political. It's not about the revolution. None of that stuff.
Well, that's good.
Yes.
It was kind of dry.
Well, and I got to tell you this. So, if you are appalled by adult language, if you're basically, if you can't watch HBO, you're not going to enjoy the book. There is adult language, there's adult content, there's sex, graphic sex, drug use. Nothing is depicted in detail. I mean, this is not erotica, but there is sexual
it's not
situations.
50 Shades of Grey.
Well, actually, if you were to ask me to give an idea of what it is, it's American Psycho meets 50 Shades of Grey. Because it's about somebody who has this secret life that's hidden, and there are aspects of it that are somewhat shady, if you will. But it's not 50 Shades of Grey in the way that let's go into every intimate detail of the sex itself.
Right.
It is setting up these sexualized situations, so...
I thoroughly enjoyed.
There's a lot of Easter eggs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things hidden in there.
Yeah.
They're Easter eggs for my friends, mostly. But there are some mentions about other stuff that will be coming or has come in other books.
Well, there's a Baker in there, too.
There's a William Baker.
Yeah.
Who is a pseudonym of Chris Bishop that he uses. Basically, everyone that I know is mentioned in the book in one role or the other. And, I mean, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
That the working title of this book was Photobiography. And it started out being just that. The inspiration for the book was my assistant saying, and God only knows how you get off on this conversation, but just saying, killing someone, please, you're not capable of that. And that line is actually in the book. And so the whole thing was, I mean, outside of work, everything is so compartmentalized in our lives now. Like, I would never bring my work friends to hang out with the posse. And the posse might stop by work, but they're not going to get to know them in any measurable way. Yeah. And then I have friends here, and they're all kind of compartmentalized. And in that kind of society, where everything is kind of public, if you choose to keep something very secret, it could exist outside of the lines of all these groups. Because, again, I got a work thing that I got to go to. And then I tell my other friends that, or I tell my work people that, I got a thing with the posse that I got to go to. No, everybody thinks I'm somewhere else. Perfectly explainable. And my time is my own at that point. So that's how it started. It started out with me telling a story about myself in which there was a subplot of murder. And then as life has happened, as the story gets told, I heard a story once about, I think it was Leonardo da Vinci, or it may have been Michelangelo or Donatello or possibly Raphael. It was one of the Ninja Turtles. It was one of the Ninja Turtles. I know that for sure. Who said that...
or Shredder.
He doesn't carve the wood, or he doesn't carve the marble. That he just chips away and reveals the object that's hidden underneath. Yeah. And that's kind of how my writing style works. It's the story takes it off on its own.
Well, I can understand that, because... the first draft of About That Time I Fell in Love that I wrote was very semi-autobiographical.
Right, yeah.
And as I wrote it, it strayed where it needed to be more entertaining or... Right. But now that I'm going through it again to prepare it for shooting... Right. There's a lot of, moments where I say to myself, well, I can really amp it up by doing this instead. Right. Yeah. So you start with something that's true to you, that feels like you, and then you take that skeleton and go okay, what can I do to change it?
The good thing about being me and living my life, though, is that I have a lot of these interesting fucking stories that I can pull from, and I change the names and I change a little bit of the details, but it's essentially the same story. So that was the good thing. The two major women in his life are based on real women from my life. A lot of the stories that you're going to hear, and it's, I told you before, I am more proud of this than I am anything that I've done in my life. I think that is absolutely well done. If I do say so myself, and I'm so happy with the result. When I got done the movement, it was a lot of, I've had this thing in my head for 10 years, and I just have to get it out.
Right.
And I finally did. And then this was the first thing that I literally sat down and said, I want to write something. And I had an idea, and I just rolled with it.
Yeah.
Instead of having that, like, obsession to try and get it done. So.
Well, I will say this before you get into a little excerpt for us.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding about me being a fucking terrible reader. Like, it's a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, the ADHD doesn't help, but
Certainly.
I'm just a terrible reader. And it's always been a problem of mine. And if you give me something dry,
yeah,
it takes forever.
Right. How are you doing on the entrepreneur book?
Not good. Not good.
Okay.
But it's what I really like about your writing is that it feels it's somewhat conversational, the way that it's written. Mm-hmm. Almost like somebody regaling you with the story.
Right.
And it's very, you get put into the situation very easily. You feel like you're in the place where, and it reads quickly. I mean, I really,
one of the most flattering
as somebody who has trouble like reading at a good pace, I found it very, very engaging and very fun to read, you know? All right. Well, you want to give us a little taste?
I do. All right. So oh crap. I'm going to do a couple of, oh man, of course I just screwed it up. All right. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from different places in the book. Again, it's available on Amazon now. Faux, F-A-U-X. You can follow Faux Novel on Twitter and Faux Novel on Facebook. Please, you can check out all the information there. So I'm going to read from Chapter 1, the very opening of the book, where we meet Chris Bishop for the first time.
And just so everybody doesn't worry that this is going to get too dry,
yeah.
Every once in a while I'm just going to yell out the word titties.
And feel free to chime in with any thoughts that you had. Okay, so Chapter 1.
Titties.
Mr. Bishop, the whiteness of the noise disturbed the black clearness of his mind. A water drip in a silent house at midnight. A fly buzzing around a family picnic. An itch while giving a presentation. Something small and simple that consumes a person's focus. Mr. Bishop. There it was again. The sing-song voice pierced the stillness of the moment. It was amazing how such an otherwise sweet voice could remind him of fingernails on a chalkboard. Shit. He'd lost his train of thought now. What was he doing? Christopher. It was more insistent. It required his attention. Thus, he did not like it. He could barely keep the lid on the boiling stress and anger already, and this annoyance was not helping. He had been doing so well. He had controlled himself so well. For 97 days now. 97 days. He had been straight edge. No sex, no drugs, no alcohol. Just the burn, the desire. He was hoping to find clarity or something. Center himself, but it wasn't working. Every day it seemed worse. Simmering, brewing, and boiling just under the lid. Chris! Snapped back to reality and seething. What? He turned and yelled in the direction of the voice. Suddenly, it was as if the mist dissipated and the fog rolled back, and she stood right in front of him, now that he had turned. Short, skinny, and blonde, right in his wheelhouse, if the situation had been different, if he didn't need her. She stood there, mouth agape, clearly stunned. He felt something, a pang of some sort. Not in his chest or his stomach, but somewhere in between. Like the phantom ache of a lost limb. He didn't react. She quickly recovered. It wasn't in the job description, and she wouldn't have taken the job if she had known, but it had become a part of the daily routine. Outburst of anger, being ignored for hours, 1 minute feeling like a partner, the next feeling like an indentured servant, but she couldn't leave. So, that is the intro to the book. We've met Chris. We've met Natalie, who is his assistant.
Yeah.
Loosely based on my assistant. And that is, when I say photobiography, that's generally the kind of the give and take that she and I have. That's a little back and forth. So,
I would like to say, you know what? I saw this after I read Faux. Mm-hmm. So it has kind of a different reaction.
Sure.
I'm sure other people would have done it in the other way, but there were many times where I was going through Faux where I kind of had like that House of Cards feel.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I'm watching House of Cards, I was like thinking I knew what was coming up next, and then all of a sudden something would happen. I'd just be like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah.
Like, "Oh really?"
Yeah.
Like, "Oh my god!" Like, no, where really? And then like the next couple episodes pass, and you're just like, "When is this gonna come up again?" And
right.
You're just like
waiting for that.
You're just like it's nervous tension where you're just like waiting for, like when is this gonna like. Rear its ugly head again. And Faux has, with this one, you're following Chris. I think Chris is on every page.
Chris is on every single page. It is mostly from his perspective. There are things that happen outside, but around him. So you have a very godlike perspective, but you can also hear his thoughts in a way. So what I always picture when I'm writing it, especially stuff like this, is like the old Hitman games. Or some where you are up and above the character looking over his shoulder, but you can still hear what's going on in his head. And like if you lean around the corner, you can hear the conversation somebody's having nearby. Just that kind of thing. Sometimes we span out a little bit and see characters, but for the most part, it's focused on him. So, and we're gonna go to when Chris meets one of the women in his life, who is a woman named Kennedy.
Ho-ho holiday party.
So anybody who's been listening to the podcast for a while has heard us brought up the ho-ho holiday party. And Kennedy was a fucking character. She wasn't as good as... what was the other girl's name? Gabriella. But she was hot and... Oh, I just had a huge crush on her. And I get crushed on strippers, so that happened. So just to set up a little bit, Chris is at a strip club. He... is looking to relax, and he has a great relationship with the owner of the club who says, there's a new girl and you're going to love her. I'm going to go tell her to get on stage right now. So he sees her come up on stage and he takes her all in, and then this is his reaction. And I think it also gives a little insight to his mentality. And when you're talking about two different situations in his life, this is his perspective in this one situation, if you will. And feel free to jump in if you have comments or questions.
Will do.
Also, Kennedy is, if you want to picture her in your mind, she's about 5'2", very thin and blonde. Not super thin, but not overly muscled.
Titties.
Muscled either. Well proportioned. If anybody who knows me, basically girls that I date. So
yeah. The ones in the wheelhouse.
The ones in the wheelhouse. As the blonde moved, Chris could feel himself relax. This is what he loved about the clubs. If you had just the right buzz and just the right girl, you felt like you were the only guy in the room.
Titties.
She wasn't always looking at him, but he had the feeling that Nick had let her know he was there and that he'd be paying special attention to her. There are different kinds of guys at the club, an entire spectrum, if you will. On the far left, you'll find the guys that want girls to get naked as quickly as possible, Corey. And then just prance around naked on stage for 2 songs.
I don't think that part was in the book.
Oh, no, that was my addition.
Oh, you're improv-ing here?
Yeah. Generally, these are the guys who get inappropriate with their touching and tipping. They ask the girl to touch themselves or to do other sexual acts. They're the guys asking for $20 blowjobs in the champagne room. On the other end of the spectrum, there are guys that like the tease. Generations before, they would have enjoyed a burlesque show. They don't care about the nudity.
Actually, can I cut in here for a second?
Go ahead.
When I was 18, I went to a strip club.
Right.
And somebody offered me $35 blowjob and a fuck.
Right.
And I remember saying to myself at the time that seemed like an entirely too low of a price.
Right.
It'd be like if somebody was just like, "Hey, you want to buy this brand new Mustang? It's only $20."
Right. Yeah.
You're just like, should be more than that.
Right.
Is there people who expect $20 blowjobs? It feels like that's a discount price.
Having been involved with somebody in the adult entertainment business, I can tell you that request has been made. That's where that comes from. So,
I just feel like that's a. I mean, I don't know. I've never ever paid for that level of
care.
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
Any strip club I've ever been to has always been sort of like about the dollars on the stage, or like a dance in the back, but nothing that could possibly transfer an infectious disease.
Right, yeah. I've never paid for sex other than in a traditional we're dating, so I have to take you out kind of way. Because as we know, Rob thinks that dating is prostitution. Yeah. So, yeah. Are you get?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay.
I'm just amused by $20 blowjobs.
Enjoy the burlesque show. They don't care about the nudity. It's the act of stripping that they enjoy. The tease, the slow reveal, that's what they want. Some of these guys don't even need her to get naked by the end because it's not that important. Chris was closer to the second type, but with one caveat. It might take 1.5 songs to get naked, but she better be naked by the end. The tease was great, but only if there was a payoff. Too many women had learned that about him. Despite the fact that this beautiful woman was gyrating half naked before his eyes, it was really the memories of those girls that got his body reacting. His eyes were on her, but his mind was lost in 1,000 memories. He was thinking about Jackie, the first girl that he had met when he moved into his college dorm. So, you get a little perspective on Chris. He's good with the build-up, but it's all about the payoff. Jackie was also the first girl that I met when I moved into my freshman dorm. The story that follows did not happen. That is fiction. I made that up, just so that's clear when you're reading the book.
Well, what I do enjoy when I notice a name that I know. Right. And I do enjoy that oftentimes that name has nothing to do with the person that, like...
No.
Like, I'll recognize it. It'd be like if I wrote a book and I had a character named Rob Cheek, and he was, like, always playing Dungeons and Dragons, and...
Right, yeah.
He's like, I am a new elf. Like...
But just recognizing the person.
Right, you would say, like, oh, I know Rob Cheek.
Not that guy.
That's not him.
Well, see if this reminds you of anything.
Okay.
We're cutting to later in that same scene. I'm Kennedy, she said. And before you ask, yes, that's my real name. Chris picked up his drink and chuckled as he took a sip. Sure it is, sweetheart. What? She said. I'm serious. Okay, Chris said. Some ground rules. Kennedy, right? She nodded. Good. Chris continued. You don't have to do the hard sell. You'll make more tonight than most of your nights. You don't have to lie to me, and you don't have to tell me anything about you that you don't want to. Frankly, I don't care. If I ask, it's just because I'm making conversation. The girl looked surprised. Nick knows me well. Nick is the owner of the club, by the way. Nick knows me well. Nick, by the way, fashioned after another Nick that we know.
Yeah.
So, Nick knows me well. Chris finished. He knows what I like, physically anyway, and you hit the genetic lottery as far as I'm concerned. If you can keep my attention, then you'll keep that seat. You'll make money and you'll be entertained, and I'll be entertained. It's a win-win. Deal? The girl looked confused. Deal, I guess. Okay, Chris said, handing her a glass. So tell me about you. So that's basically how the first conversation with Kennedy went.
Yeah.
It was, listen, I dated somebody who does this. You don't need to hard sell me. You seem fun. Just be honest with me and hang out here and we'll be cool. So, the last thing I want to read is what I consider to be the best part of the book. And it is the first time that Chris is meeting CJ, his the woman who is the other woman in his life.
Right, the other side.
And this has never happened to me. This is a fictional scene, but I just enjoy it so much. And I can't wait for other people to read everything that's around it. But this is one of the best things I think I've ever written. And I don't know if it's because the emotional connection to it, because like I want that to happen. I want that situation to happen. And I'm going to intro the paragraph and then I'm going to skip down. The characters that we're going to meet are CJ.
Well,
go ahead.
What I do like is sometimes when you write about something that's a static.
Yeah.
Like if you write about like falling in love, there's that feeling you have inside where you've sort of like fallen in love yourself. Like
right.
you've coaxed it into your own in mind.
Yeah. And
you get to experience it like, you know, with the character that you're writing.
Right.
So like there's a time where and this happens too when I write like depressing shit.
Same thing.
Like afterwards I'm just like, I really don't want anybody around me. I just sort of want to be miserable and alone. And then, you know, so on and so forth. But.
Right. So if you have ever fallen in love, for those of you who can remember the moment where you met the person who like most impacted your life, that's what Chris is about to experience. So the characters are CJ, Chris, and a guy named Jim, who is he's somebody who knows CJ and does the introduction. So,
can I pry a little too?
Sure, go ahead.
How much of the naming of CJ has to do with CJ Craig?
It is partially to do with CJ Craig. You will when you read, you will see a lot of that, like I hold down my shit from CJ Craig, the snarkiness, the knowledgeableness in a way that is like so. I don't particularly find the actress
Allison Janney
attractive. I had a weird sex dream about her that repeated back in college, but I think it was because I was watching West Wing with you all the time, and I think that's why it happened. But I'm not particularly attracted to her, but as CJ, I am just enthralled by her.
Right.
And it's all about her personality. So, ironically, the other person who it's based on, the physical description is based on, is actually also a CJ. So, CJ, if you're listening, I hope you enjoy. She's already read this part. I sent it to her. And it was so weird because I wrote it completely independent, and then maybe 3 weeks later, she posted pictures on Facebook wearing the exact outfit that I fictionally described. All right, so again, Chris, CJ, and Jim. Chris couldn't have been any less comfortable. It wasn't the tux. He was fine in any kind of clothing. It was the people around him. He hated these pretentious events. But the only way to make partner...
I got to intersect with the tux thing.
Yeah.
Just thinking about Jack Donaghy.
Yeah. It's after 6.
What am I, a farmer?
Yeah, Chris is not like that. Chris hates dressing up. So, also, this is the bit about me where going to shit that I don't want to go to, dressing in a way I don't want to, because you have to.
Right.
It was the only way to make partner and to get anywhere in this town was to be seen at the right events and meet the right people. Not that he specifically wanted to get anywhere, but a man of his age and his position was supposed to want to get somewhere. He didn't want to arouse any suspicions. It was already suspicious enough that he wasn't married or even close to that milestone at his age. So he sat down at a table, having discussions with people that made him want to dig out his own eyeballs and cut his own throat. He took a big slug from the glass in his hand. Ice rattled at the bottom as he put it back on the table. Suddenly he felt a hand on his shoulder, and he looked up, but didn't recognize the face. "Mr. Bishop?" the man asked. "It looks like you need a fresh drink. Would you like to join me at the bar?" "Sure," Chris answered, looking around the table. "Excuse me, please." And I'm going to skip down a little bit to...
This is just good pod.
Sorry, yeah. I should have cut out this before. So Jim wants him to do something, and he doesn't want to do it. But we're skipping down to somewhere else. Chris started zoning out from Jim's words. He was distracted. His gaze fell to the top of the staircase entering the ballroom. At the top of the stairs was one of the most beautiful women he had ever seen. She was striking in a shimmering champagne-colored gown. It had a single strap over her left shoulder and clung perfectly around her hips and fluttered loosely around her calves, which were visible through the thigh-high slits on both sides. Her red lipstick, although not too bright, set off her amber hair perfectly. The gold accents, earrings, rings, and bracelets made her pale skin glow, even with the freckles. Each looked like they were perfectly placed by some master artist. The final touches were the red pumps and the gold and red clutch, both of which matched the lipstick and jewelry perfectly. She was perfection. Chris realized he had not heard a thing that Jim had said. He turned towards him, but found Jim staring at him with a goofy smile. "Sorry," Chris apologized. "I was distracted. You were saying?" "I was saying," Jim said, pointing at the girl, "she is worth 1,000 of the women that you typically date." "That I typically date?" Chris asked, turning towards the girl who was now making her way elegantly down the staircase and into the room. "Yeah," Jim continued, "at least 1,000 Kennedys." Chris whipped his head around, but Jim continued to watch the girl make her way through the crowd. "And," he continued, "no matter how big a deal you think you are, you're not a big enough deal for her." "What's that supposed to mean?" Chris asked. "In your world, you're a big deal. I know that," Jim said, "but she wants more. Why is she still single despite being the most eligible bachelorette in the city? She wants someone who's going somewhere, someone who wants and expects more of themselves and of everyone else." Jim waved towards her, and she came in his direction. He leaned forward and whispered in Chris's ear, "I can make you that, Mr. Bishop." Chris was in awe. If it was possible, she got more beautiful the closer she got. Now, when she was standing only a foot away from him, she was positively angelic. Well, and speaking of inappropriate, I do want to read one other portion. And because I realized that all of that was kind of like lovey-dovey and rom-com style. This is the other part of it when I say
well, this is a romance novel. So.
It's not a romance novel. It's a romance novel in the same way that American Psycho is. Or that
Can we get a picture of Fabio?
No, on the front cover?
No, just in general. Like whenever you're reading, I just like a picture of Fabio.
Can I get you to put on a blonde wig and be shirtless on a horse? And I'll take that picture.
I don't think anybody wants that. It's just not like... These aren't abs.
They're abs belly. There. They're just covered, so it's fine. I got killer abs.
Thank God we have video.
All right, so this is...
I'm just going to do one of those ones where I like Sharpie on abs.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. All right, so...
And from a distance, nobody knows.
Press yourself up against a chain link.
From a distance, nobody knows the difference.
There you go. Just remember that when we're in North Carolina. Just draw it on every morning.
Right.
All right, so this is when I say there's adult content in the book. This is about there is some graphic stuff in there, but this is what you can expect as far as that's concerned. Those were the thoughts flashing through his mind at the moment. Maybe it shouldn't have been, given the circumstances. He was inside Kennedy at the time, but he was the only thing inside. They were standing on a balcony. Well, he was standing on it. She was sitting on the railing. She had her feet hooked behind his shoulders. His hand was around her throat, and her head and chest were hanging out into the void, 20 stories up. She had her eyes closed, but when she opened them and turned her head to look down, he could feel her body writhing beneath him, and she cried out into the night. The best part, she had suggested it. She was going to be trouble. So, like I said, it's not crazy romance novel, but
I really enjoyed that scene.
There is a lot of very similar stuff to that throughout the book. Like I said, it's not crazy. There's no there's no bulging member or anything like that. It's not a romance novel, but that is a setup for kind of the relationship between the two of them, and so there's a lot of that between him and with it's two books in one. With CJ, you get the like glimmering walk down the staircase, and she blows him away, and she later on in that scene takes his glass of whiskey and drinks the last shot of whiskey, and is like, "Come on, Tiger, let's get back in there." And when you're reading that scene, I want you to picture The Weeknd. What's the name of that song that's on the radio now? Shoot.
I haven't listened to the radio.
You listen to The Weeknd, the popular song by the band The Weeknd, about dancing. And I told you that's going to be the song that plays in the movie version of this when they're in the ballroom together. It's going to be that song. Do you know the song I'm talking about? Crap.
I'll put it in the show
notes. It's going to kill me. Yeah, it's about she told me to dance. She said, "Shut up and dance."
Dancing.
You know what song that is? How's it go? Do you remember?
Yowza.
I said, "You're holding back." She said, "Shut up and dance with me." Okay, there you go. That song. That song's going to be playing during that scene when you read it. Anyway, so that's CJ. And then you have Stripper Kennedy, who likes rough sex and is using him, and he's using her. Mm-hmm. And then CJ's the partner, and she is the object to be used, and the object that uses him. So that nice dichotomy between the two of them. And there are also drugs. There is some drug use of the many kinds. There's some violence, obviously. It's about murderer, so just be ready for that. And there are some very graphic descriptions of murder. I don't know how you felt about those, but
I didn't even. I didn't even bat an eye.
Okay, well, if you're it's
as somebody who's killed a lot of people in his life. I mean,
it's
as somebody who knows about people who've killed a lot of people.
It's not slasher flick. It's not like gruesome. It's at the end of the scene. One thing that Brandy said to me was, at the end of the scene, I was like, "That was beautiful." And then you're like, wait a second, he just murdered that guy. That's not beautiful. That's not the thing that's beautiful. Yeah. But like you're in his emotions. You're feeling why he does it and how he does it and what he likes, and that's why you get that feeling. We did good.
If you want more The Anthem, otheanthem.com, Corey at otheanthem.com, The Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, YouTube, and the listener line, 443-219-7595.
What's that number again?
It's 443-219-7595. And I think... I don't know. I think if people buy the book, they should
call in.
call in or text the listener line or something like that. We don't have to play it if you don't want, but
just let me know, my fragile, delicate ego.
Let it know. And maybe if you want to be recognized in some way, we'll figure out something.
Anyway, you can find me on all your social networks at Robert and Cheek. Check out adeaddrop.com, themovinginteraction.com. There's the Moving Insurrection available on Amazon now. You can also check out foundingthefuture.us, and hopefully coming by the time this drops, robertandcheek.com, which will be your source for all of that, including
Buy Rob's
Faux.
books.
Oh, there you got to say it! Hey, buy my books. Yes.
Books, plural.
As I said, Faux is available on Tuesday. Check out Faux Novel on Twitter and Facebook. The Moving Insurrection's on Twitter and Facebook. Founding the Future's on everything.
Yeah.
You can find all of that information at robertandcheek.com. So,
all right. Well, good job. Good job.
Fucking stoked. The whole thing.
Hey guys, thank you for checking out the Spotlight. If you liked it, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. This week's full episode is up here, and right down here is from Rob's first book, The Movement Insurrection. Catch you next week.